Welcome to Short Times, where we review the latest movies in just a few minutes. Today, we're diving into the Spanish film The Platform, directed by Galder Gaztelu-Urrutia. The film begins with an elderly chef walking through the bustling kitchen, his eyes scanning over the various dishes being prepared. He stopped to inspect each one carefully, nodding in approval at the delicious aromas and flavors that filled the room. The staff moved around him efficiently, their movements choreographed like a well-oiled machine. Goreng, a man played by Ivan Masag, woke up in a strange place. He was told by his cellmate, Trimagasi, that they were on level 48 of a prison known as the Pit. Trimagasi explained that there were 2 people on each level of the prison, and that the inmates were knocked out and moved to a different level every month. Goreng soon realized that food was a key aspect of this prison, with Trimagasi noting that the people below and above them did not speak to each other. An alarm blared and a large table filled with partially eaten food descended into their cell through a hole in the center of the table. Trimagasi began to stuff his face with the food, while Goreng looked on in disgust. It was clear that the food had been lowered through the 47 levels above them before reaching their cell. Goreng grabbed an uneaten apple from the table and put it in his pocket to eat later. As the table began to descend to the cell below theirs, Trimagasi spit on the remaining food and drank the remaining wine, despite Goreng's objections. As the table of food descends to the next level, the cell becomes unbearably hot. Trimagasi explains that the food on the table is only meant for them while it is on their floor. As punishment for keeping the apple, the guards have cranked up the heat, making it almost unbearable to stay in the cell. Goreng, feeling the pressure, throws the apple down the hole to the table below, and only then the heat goes off. This experience serves as a harsh reminder to Goreng of the strict rules and the severe punishments that come with breaking them. Goreng later learns that he had volunteered to be in the pit for 6 months in exchange for receiving an accredited diploma. He becomes curious about Trimagasi's past and eventually gets him to open up. Trimagasi reveals that he had once become enraged by a trivial matter and threw his TV out the window, which unfortunately killed a person standing outside his apartment. Rather than being sent to a psychiatric hospital, Trimagasi chose to be in the pit. Trimagasi also shares that the lowest level he has been on is 132, and that no food makes it down that far. However, he claims to have found ways to survive. Goreng becomes determined to yell up to the higher levels to conserve food, but Trimagasi warns him that they won't listen to a communist. In addition, when Goreng yells downwards to the other inmates to conserve food, Trimagasi urinates on those below, saying they will return the favor when he is placed on a level lower than them. Lastly, Goreng shares that he brought a book, Don Quixote, with him to the prison, while Trimagasi brought a knife. Goreng initially refuses to eat, but as the days pass, he eventually succumbs to hunger and joins Trimagasi at the table. One day, a dead body plummets down through the hole in the center of the table. Trimagasi explains that many people above commit suicide when they have all their needs met and have to focus solely on their situation and the things they have done to survive. This revelation incenses Goreng, and he is appalled by Trimagasi's cavalier attitude towards the situation, as well as that of his fellow prisoners. He even accuses Trimagasi of killing and eating his prior cellmate when they were on one of the lower levels. Trimagasi denies this and says his cellmate served his term and was released. He explains that they survived on the lower levels by cannibalizing the corpses that fell from above. One day, a woman is seated upon the table as it descends. Trimagasi explains that this woman is named Miharu, played by Alexandra Masanke, and she is trying to find her young child, who is allegedly held somewhere within the pit. He says that she kills her cellmate every month, theorizing that the body that fell may have been her cellmate's, in hopes of being paired with her child. She descends on the platform as far as she can go every month in search of her child. When the table descends to level 49, the inmates there attempt to rape her, but Goreng, horrified by the situation, yells at them to stop. Miharu, in self-defense, kills the 2 men and continues her descent in search of her child. After spending an extended period of time in the pit, Goreng starts to adopt the same ruthless attitude as Trimagasi. On their last night at level 47, Trimagasi tells Goreng that he has grown to like him, but he doesn't believe that Goreng has what it takes to survive the pit. Trimagasi also reveals that he only has 2 more months left before his sentence is over. When Goreng wakes up, he finds himself tied to the bed and Trimagasi standing over him with a knife. They have been moved to level 171, and upon discovering where they are, other inmates start to scream and some even commit suicide by jumping down the hole. Trimagasi tells Goreng that if he hadn't bound him, Goreng would have eventually killed him out of hunger, as Goreng is younger and in better shape. Trimagasi plans to fast for as long as he can and slowly mutilate Goreng so they can both eat his flesh. When Goreng calls Trimagasi a murderer, Trimagasi blames the people on the levels above them for causing the situation. When the table descends, there isn't even bones left on it for them to eat. After a while, Trimagasi starts to cut into Goreng's leg. But before he can finish, the table arrives with Miharu on it. She wounds Trimagasi and frees Goreng. Freed, Goreng kills Trimagasi. In their desperate state of hunger, Goreng and Miharu eat Trimagasi's flesh before she descends further down on the table. The experience has left a deep psychological impact on Goreng. He starts to hallucinate conversations with Trimagasi, who is now part of his body, and having sexual fantasies with Miharu. Goreng barely survives to the end of the month, with his mind and body scarred by the traumatic experience of the pit. Goreng wakes up to find a new cellmate, Imagwiri, played by Antonia San Juan, who has a dog with her. They are now on level 33. Imagwiri tells Goreng that she used to work for the administration that runs the pit and the country outside, before volunteering to be placed inside. She reveals to him that there are 200 levels in total, and that if everyone only ate what they needed, there would be enough food to reach the bottom. Imagwiri explains that the administration hopes that the inmates will come together and sacrifice for the greater good, which they plan to use as an example to convince the people outside the pit to do the same. As the table descends, Imagwiri tries to convince the inmates on the level below to only eat what they need, but they ignore her. Throughout the following weeks, Imagwiri continues to plead with those on the level below to eat only what they need. They are only persuaded when Goreng threatens to defecate in the food. However, they are unable to persuade those on the levels above them to ration their food. Imagwiri believes that Goreng may be the person who can bring the prisoners together and convince them to sacrifice for the greater good. One day, Miharu is found critically ill on the table. They treat her, but when she wakes up, she kills Imagwiri's dog. As Miharu descends, Imagwiri reveals that her story about her child is not true. She tells Goreng that Miharu voluntarily entered the pit in exchange for help becoming the Asian Marilyn Monroe. To prove her trustworthiness, Imagwiri reveals that she has cancer and signed up to try and help those inside the pit. Imagwiri falls into depression after the loss of her dog. After reassignment day, Goreng finds himself on level 202. When he wakes up, Goreng finds that Imagwiri has hung herself, likely due to learning that the administration lied to her about the true depth of the pit. There are even more levels below him. Goreng tries to eat his book, but ultimately, he succumbs to cannibalism once again and eats Imagwiri's corpse. He begins to have hallucinations of conversations with Imagwiri and Trimagasi, both of whom are now a part of him. The specters in his mind proclaim that he is the Messiah. The next month, Goreng wakes up to find himself on a new level with a new cellmate, Baharat. Baharat brings a rope with him and asks the prisoners above to help him climb to the top and escape the pit. But the prisoners above mock him and defecate on him. Goreng, who had calculated that there are roughly 250 levels in total, proposes that the two of them descend on the platform and distribute food to each level as they go. He believes that if they can get food to the bottom, they will have defeated the system. If they fail, they can ride the platform back up. Baharat, a devout man, agrees to the plan, and the two of them arm themselves for battle. As they begin their descent, they fight off the other inmates. They reach a level where they meet a wise man that Baharat knows. The wise man tells them that they must make sure that at least one delicious dish is sent back up the platform uneaten. He explains that this uneaten dish will serve as a message to the administration that the pit has been conquered. The two of them choose a panna cotta, a near-perfect dish, to be returned uneaten. As they continue their descent, they successfully force the prisoners to conserve food. They come across a level where Miharu is being attacked by two vicious inmates. Goreng and Baharat fight off the attackers, but both of them are injured in the process. Miharu dies from her injuries. As they continue descending, they find mostly dead or insane inmates on the lower levels. The platform finally stops at level 333, which they believe is the final level. To their surprise, they find Miharu's child there. They disembark the platform, but it continues to descend. They give the child the uneaten panna cotta and rest for the night. The next morning, Goreng wakes up to find Bharat dead from his injuries. The platform arrives at their level with no food. Goreng takes the child and boards the platform. The platform continues its descent to the very bottom, where the light from above is just a pinprick. At the bottom, Goreng encounters Trimagasi's spirit once again. Trimagasi tells him that his journey is over and that the child is the true message that needs to be sent back to the administration. Although Goreng wants to stay with the child, he is convinced by Trimagasi to leave the child behind and let it ascend alone. The platform begins its ascent to the top as Trimagasi and Goreng watch. Trimagasi assures Goreng that the child will succeed in delivering the message to the administration, and Goreng smiles, content in the knowledge that he has played a part in potentially changing the system of the pit. The platform is a powerful and thought-provoking film that will leave a lasting impact on its audience. It will make you question the society you live in and the way we consume resources. The film is not for the faint-hearted, but if you are looking for a thought-provoking story with a strong message, then the platform is a must-watch. That's it for this review. Give us your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Short Times for more movie recaps.